Today we're going to talk about the urinary system. There are two major functions of this system: to cleanse the blood of waste products and to regulate the normal balance of water and electrolytes. This is just a brief overview of the system. So you have the kidneys, and you have two ureters that go into the bladder, and urine exits through the urethra. These little diagrams right here are my poor attempt to show you that the ureters come from the kidney. So let's follow it along. So here are our kidneys, and right here this indentation is the ileum. We'll talk about that in a little while. So you have two ureters. They act as a conduit for urine as it exits the kidney to the bladder. This detrusor muscle right here consists of 3 layers of smooth involuntary muscle that are part of the urinary bladder. When the bladder is full, the parasympathetic nervous system signals the brain to contract the detrusor muscle so the urine is expelled through the urethra. Okay. Now, in here are rugae. The inner lining of the urinary bladder is a mucous membrane of transitional epithelium that is continuous with that of the ureters. Rugae are folds in the bladder lining when it is empty. These rugae allow the bladder to expand when full. This area right in here is called the trigone. The trigone or trigone is a triangular area at the base of the bladder. The apex is at the urethral opening, and the base is the 2 openings for the ureters. There is a flap at these 2 points which act as valves. They open to allow urine into the bladder and close so urine is not regurgitated back into the ureters. Okay. Now, you'll notice that on the male, we're going to talk about the urethra next. The male has a much longer urethra than the female. So there's 3 separate parts. In the female, we just have a urethra. Okay, this is the prostate gland right here, and only males have that. The prostatic urethra is part of the urethra that passes through the prostate. Right in here, the membranous urethra is the shortest part of the urethra. It passes through the pelvic floor and enters the penis. The last part is the spongy urethra, and it's the longest part of the urethra. It extends the entire length of the penis. The external urethral orifice opens to the outside at the tip of the penis. This external urethral sphincter right here, it's skeletal or voluntary muscle that circles the urethra as it exits the pelvic floor. Okay, now this is just to show you where the kidneys would be located. Now this is the left kidney right here, and it is between the 12th thoracic and the 3rd lumbar vertebrae. The right kidney is a little bit lower due to displacement by the liver. Now here's some fun facts about the kidney. It is approximately 11 to 14 centimeters long, which is about 4.3 to 5.5 inches, 6 centimeters wide, 2.4 inches, and 4 centimeters thick, 1.6 inches. Now here's a picture of the kidney. Right here is the ileum. That's that indentation of the kidney. The blood enters the kidneys through the renal arteries and exits through the renal veins at the ileum. So let's trace the blood flow. The blood comes in from the abdominal aorta into the renal artery, into the interlobular artery, and these penetrate the renal pyramids, and then those go into the arcuate artery. Arcuate just means that it's an arc. These are found at the boundary of the cortex and medulla. they branch into interlobular arteries which enter the cortex and branch into afferent arterioles. These afferent arterioles supply the nephron. And in the next picture, you'll see how then the blood leaves the glomerulus through the efferent arterioles and then comes out. They go through a network of capillaries and then they enter the arcuate vein, interlobular vein, goes through the renal vein and leaves the kidney through the renal vein and goes to the inferior vena cava. These are the renal pyramids. Right here is the renal pelvis. You have the major and minor calyces. A single is called a calyx. The urine is transported here for excretion. Right, this part in here is the renal column and it separates the renal pyramids. The medulla, right in here, is the collecting portion and the cortex is the filtering portion. Blood from the abdominal aorta goes into the renal artery, the segmented artery, lobar artery, interlobar artery, and these travel between the renal pyramids. The arcuate artery travel between the cortex and medulla, the interlobular artery to the afferent arteriole, and these enter into the glomerulus. So this is your afferent arteriole, okay, entering into the glomerulus. It does its little thing, it filters it, it comes out into the efferent arteriole, and it becomes part of these peritubular capillaries. Okay. And then you have your, and this is also called the vasa recta, and then you can see it turns into the arcuate veins and then interlobular vein and then it goes out. Okay. So this is the glomerulus. This is the proximal collecting duct, convoluted tubule. This is the loop of Henle right here, the distal convoluted tubule, and the collecting duct. Okay, so this will eventually go out through the ureters to the urethra. What else do you need to know that? So these clean waste products from the blood. Each kidney has approximately 1 million nephrons. There are two types of nephrons. The cortical nephron has the short loop of Henle that does not go beyond the cortex. 85% of the nephrons are this type. 15% are juxtamedullary nephrons. They have long loops of Henle that extend deep into the medulla. This glomerular capsule is also called the Bowman's capsule, and this is where the filtrate enters from the blood. This last slide is a view of the glomerulus. Okay. And then you can see the afferent arteriole brings the blood in, it does its filtering, and it leaves to the efferent arteriole. And in here, in this Bowman's capsule, is where the glomerular filtrate is formed. And this is any substance that has passed through the glomerular capillary, such as epithelial cells, glomerular basement membrane, and the podocytes. Water, urea, sodium, etc. Large protein molecules such as blood cells and platelets remain in the arteriole.